Good evening and welcome to a special Samhain Halloween edition of the Velocity of Now with me, your host Thomas Sheridan. This will be a 2-hour special tonight here on the Reality Bites radio network. That's realitybytesradio.com with Paula as usual at the controls. This is a pre-recorded show for two reasons. One, I'll be at work literally when you're listening to this, and secondly, I have to get up in the morning at something like 6 a.m. to do a live TV, a mainstream TV show in Australia. Even though I've been very quiet lately on the media and interviews fronts, I have been getting some rather big stuff coming in lately, and I have been turning down alt media radio interviews for a while now, as some of you have been seeing. Not for any philosophical reason. It's just that I need to put the brakes on for a while and save my what little mental energy I have left for my own stuff, as well as future projects, and as well as when I return to this show, which I promise I will. The reason why I have been away longer than I said I would be is basically because I've started a new job back in the Matrix, and it's pretty busy around this time of year, and so it's just the life thing. But I will get back to doing the show on a regular basis. It's just learning the ropes of the new system and getting comfortable with the work routine, and then I shall be back to normal doing the Velocity of Now back on the usual Wednesday night slots. But I'm pre-recording this one anyway, so when you're hearing this, you'll be hearing me in the past. Woo! Very very sound. Now, this is my favorite time of the year, and it has been a spectacular autumn, or fall, as you and North Americans call it, here in this part of the world. It's been a classic Indian summer. We've had some stunning weather. We've had some beautiful color on the foliage, on the leaves, on the trees, like you would get in New England, or you would get in the south of England or France. Or in Scandinavia. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's really special. And I'm full of creative energies, and I hope you are too. It's this my belief in this 99 moon cycle that began in late 2008 has only become more and more powerful within my own life and my own personal life cycles. I did not invent this 99 moon aspect. It comes out of the old occultic organizations of the Victorian era, and it also was a belief that human consciousness, and it's also within some Freemasonic thought, that human consciousness it like wipes itself clean and rebuilds itself in a 99 lunar cycle, which is roughly about 7 to 8 years, depending on the actual numbers of moons in that cycle. Now, it first became apparent to me in late 2008 and 2009. You have heard me speak about this before, that something funny happened in the world. There was a rip in the fabric of reality, and people started to change around us. We started to change. We started to look at our lives and realize that we were not as clever as what we think we are, or else other people looked at us and decided we were not as clever as we thought we were, or you looked at others and felt the same way. There's nothing inherently wrong or evil in this. It's just a process. Just like when the leaves die and fall from a tree, those leaves fertilize the forest. Just like when you have an addictions problem, you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever it is, that coping with that change, that point, that pivot point that actually brings you to make you force to look yourself in the mirror, is always a healthy thing. It's always a rebuilding process. Remember, the shadow always explodes up from the surface, to the surface, the more the shadow is repressed and tethered. And this is why you have in like fundamental Christian and other societies where you have the most crazy shit of all, because they have the most repressive things towards sexuality and human behavior, because religions and cults depend upon you repressing your own humanity. And the shadow doesn't go away. The shadow becomes a festering time bomb inside you. And the purpose of these 99 lunar cycle flushing out of the shadow and cleansing out of the psyche is to probably help you avoid that massive breakdown, that massive pivotal point. Now, as I said, in late 2008, early 2009, many people I know reached a crunch point in their life. They realized that they were with the wrong kind of people, in the wrong kind of circles, in the wrong kind of jobs, in the wrong kind of life, and they made changes. Sometimes there were good changes, sometimes there were bad changes. In many, many cases, these changes were forced upon us. And they made us see not only the world in a different way, but also ourselves in a different way. And there may have been a process where, in the early days, we may have had a distorted view of this change, where in many cases, people tend to have, shall we say, a victim complex developed where they feel picked on. Maybe a marriage ended, maybe they got fired from a job in 2008, 2009, maybe things didn't work out for them in college or in a club they were in, or a sport, or something or a band, or something they'd really put their hopes into had fallen apart. And then they were forced into a new way of seeing reality at that point on. And 2008, 2009 crossover is where it happened. And there may have been an early days of the moon card, where it's the dark night of the soul, and they don't call it that for nothing. Then there would have also been the blame kind of game, where they're blaming someone else for their own myopic or even selfish worldview, and that's okay. It's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to unfairly judge another person. The reality is that you're going through a process that's very much like a purging of a toxin, but this is a psychological or a consciousness toxin. You see, a lot of these people who are truly fucked up in the alternative scenes, the ones who are obsessed with seeing everything as a false flag, and I'm not saying false flags don't exist, or the ones who are obsessed with seeing pedomania and satanic pedophiles everywhere and in everything, I'm not saying it doesn't exist either, or the ones who are on the flat earth thing, the ones who are the recovered truthers, and then they become messianic and evangelical about attacking people who were in the same position that they were in a few years prior, because now they're much more clever because they've learned something. These are people who've never learned to purge the shadow. They've never accept when they're wrong. They never accept the failings of others. It's always somebody else's fault. And this is why these people never ever evolve. They either become belligerent, they develop a victim complex where everyone in the world is to blame except them, or they end up become completely narcissistic where they're writing poetry about themselves non-stop all the time, and it's all 50 shades of me, 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 me. They never learn. They never accept that crash point that happened in their life was the reset switch. They won't accept it. Now, there is an element, it's a very hard and painful thing for any of us to find out or to accept that we're a fuck up now and again. It's not an easy, we're not coached in school or religion or education or culture. It does not allow us to view ourselves in this way. But it's so fantastic if you do. If you realize you're a bit of a bastard, or you're a piece of shit in some levels, or you're involved in shitty things, unless you accept it, you will never be free of it. Now, there's always the heartbreak, the pain element after this crash point. And that's when you become an even bigger dick for a while. But when that's over, there always tends to be another midpoint halfway in the cycle, which rattles you out of it again if you haven't got your shit together. And that's what happens. And so my attitude is now, bring it on. We're now right in the middle of the cycle. Things will really begin to manifest and unfold for many of you in springtime next year. Now, I'm not putting a doom prediction out there. This could be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. You could find yourself having a beautiful baby. You could find your girlfriend or yourself pregnant. You could meet a wonderful person. But there will also be an exchange. You may have to give up your family for that. If your family are holding your back, if you're involved in a religion, you may have to throw that religion away to move forward, and there will be repercussions. But you've got to do it. You have to go with it. And the sooner you accept This is the new order. This is the new way for me. The easier that transition over is to the next lunar cycle. And it's almost like being reincarnated within your own existence. Within your own lifetime, you're being reincarnated. Everything is secular and everything recycles and rebuilds itself. And if there's a blockage in the system, be it your pulmonary system, your respiratory system, your nervous system, your intestinal system, it will explode if it's not cleared. Well, your consciousness and your psyche work exactly the same way. You have to unblock it, take out the plug and let that shit flow out of you. You have no choice, because if it doesn't happen, it will kill you. It will manifest into disease. It will manifest into social isolation. It will manifest into fanaticism, such as religious fanaticism, ending up in a cult. See, that's why all these people and these Chinese flying saucer, comet death cults and all these wacky space channeling cults, is because they're refusing to deal with a trauma in the past, and they're looking for someone to buy them out. They can buy them out of the trauma. So they go to a cult leader with a Ouija board or with a bag of crystals, or who claims to be in contact with some superior knowledge or being, and instead of working on themselves, they then transfer the blockage over to the pathological and usually psychopathic cult leader, who turns them into a simulacra or a doppelganger of the psychopathic cult leader, be it in an extremist sort of religious aspect, or in a flying saucer cult aspect, in an extremist political system such as extreme socialism, extreme fascism. You cannot transfer your shit. You've got to own your shit. And that's what this cycle is telling us. We have got to own our shit. So remember that. So it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing, because ultimately, when someone says to you, so when some lunatic is trying to get money off you by saying there's a comet coming to the earth that will destroy us, if you don't give me this money, or you don't do as I tell you, you won't ascend to another dimension and escape, or you won't get on the comet and fly to Alpha Centauri. That won't happen. You've got to own the shit. You have to own it. And you cannot transfer it. And it's very important. So you're in control. That's the beautiful thing about these 99 lunar cycle changeovers, that you and nobody else is in control. You're in control. And how you handle it, how much you apply maturity, measured, rational responses, and an ability to say, it's an opportunity in many ways. It could get bad, it could get very bad, but it's an opportunity. I am being rebuilt, and there's a chance to begin with a new psychic or conscious clean slate. I'm still the same person. You're still got the same attributes of your underlying personality. It's just all the coating on top of that. All the coating that you've collected on top of that during the last 7 or 8 years is what you need to purge during the last 99 moons. Now, we're really coming up to the midpoint now. So here's the things to look out for, right? You're in a situation whether it's anything. It could be a relationship, it could be your job, it could be your friends, your family, something you're involved with, a club, an organization, a belief package, whatever. You'll start to see around now, and I guarantee it's going to happen to you, because this cycle is unavoidable. Because I've traced back, the last one was 2008, right? That was the last crunch point. So many people I know had a major life turning point in late 2008, 2009. Before that, what was it? 2000, 2001, folks. Need I say more? Prior to that was the early 90s. I had a lot of personal change in my life, very positive at that time. I was changing in my career, moving away from being a kind of a bohemian musician type into being a kind of a worker type, and I was going to night school to learn graphic design, all wonderful stuff. And so it was all good. So it can be a great change over a bad change, but it's definitely applicable. I've no doubt about it. Now, it just may be my version of the consciousness, and you guys are like me. We're kind of like a soul tribe. We're kind of wired in together. For some people, it might be a different cycle. But I'm sure that most of you listening to this show, who are into my stuff, who enjoy my jokes, enjoy my humor, enjoy my books, enjoy my view of the world, I can guarantee nearly all of you would have that 2002, 2008, 2009 crossover experience that I'm talking about, negative, positive, whatever, but it was a major change. It unblocked your blockages, your psychic blockages, and your social behavior and whatever. So it is real. I can guarantee you it is real. I'm not making this up. I didn't talk to myself in the future as a space being to find this out. It's based on observation, the greatest thing you can actually do in your own life. Now, as I said, we're coming up to the beginning stages. Now, you don't have to be paranoid about this. You have to be aware of this, okay? Now, how you're aware of this is, suppose, like I said, you're in a relationship, you're in a job, you're in an organization, you're in a friendship, you're in a family. You will start to notice in the people that you're most connected to, perhaps in a toxic way or in an unhealthy way, shall we say, or in a superficial way, more likely, that they will reveal aspects of their personality or their relationship towards you that you'd never heard before. For instance, they may be critical towards you quite abruptly and out of the blue for no reason after the previous years of everything being wonderful and nice. And you're saying to yourself, where the fuck did that come from? Doesn't mean they're bastards or psychopaths or anything like that. It means that you're getting hints. It's almost like you're watching the leaves on your tree beginning to turn brown. Another thing that happened would be, you could say you're in a political or a religious or a spiritual or an activist group or something like that, and suddenly you hear something about the methodology or the constitution or what that group gets up to, and you realize to yourself, shit, I didn't realize that was about that. I don't really like that. Oh, I'm not crazy about that. You may be in a job and it was been great for so long, or you've been growing up, ticking along, you've just been accepting as a paycheck, and then suddenly it dawns on you that there are plans in the company, but you're not part of them. Now, you could sit there with your arms folded in a huff and wait to be thrown out the door with no dignity, or you could make provisions for surviving the transition over. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be in a band and it's going good, and then you suddenly discover that the bass player or the drummer is suddenly, you see needle marks in his arm, or her arm. She's on drugs. Well, you've got to deal with that because they're not going to get better, and it might damage the band. You may get a record deal or something, or a management deal, and they overdose on the night of the tour. It's got to be dealt with. You'll start to see in your own life right about now shimmering reflections of distortions and blockages you are not previously or you are blissfully unaware of. So when you notice these things, you make provisions for this to be the start of something that's happening down the road. On the other side of things, it could be a good thing. Someone you kind of fancied, and maybe you didn't know they fancied you, they might start dropping hints out of the blue that they're interested. This kind of thing. You be a man or a woman about it and you deal with it. Or you're in a relationship with somebody and suddenly it's gone a little bit sticky, a little bit icy. Well, if you want to save the relationship, you be honest with yourself and this person and you talk about it. But you don't fob it off or you don't shag it off. You have to deal with it. And this is okay. This is life. This is your life. This is your story. This is your monomyth. There's nothing wrong with this at all. This is something you need to deal with. Now, we're also going to see, and we've seen it already, people around us absolutely imploding, changing vastly differently in their personalities out of the blue, doing stupid suicidal things, wrecking themselves to make points that are completely irrelevant and prove nothing and mean nothing in the scheme of things out of nowhere. So if you have not seen these things now, I'd be surprised. But if you look around you, you're watching the leaves on the tree turning brown. And do you remember that Monty Python sketch where the leaves all suddenly fell in one go off the tree, like a mass suicide? Well, you have to avoid that. You have to have a gentle release of the leaves one by one, rather than the shock doctrine or the shock factor of it overpowering you. So that's the 99 lunar cycle, changeover coming. Be prepared, be wise, and be like the person going down a rapid river. Don't try to go with the flow and not smash yourself against the rocks or the branches on either side. That's the only way you're going to deal with it and survive. Now, so that's that 99 lunar cycle. So I again, keep in contact with me and let me know if you are experiencing anything. You don't have to go into details, but keep an eye open. The dream project is still racing along as it was. I am still getting tremendous amounts of emails. Thank you for that, and keep them coming. And we do have an indicator. We do have one that's coming up. You remember the China one? You were all dreaming about China for weeks and weeks and weeks. Well, lots of you were. And then amazingly out of the blue, the engine explosions happened, which I also believe are causing all these phenomenal red sunsets we're all seeing and photographing. These Turner type sunsets, which usually only happen when you have a major volcano and it leaves particulates in the upper atmosphere. I believe that Tianjin explosion, which probably could have killed many thousands of people. China's a disgusting country, and the Chinese governments are disgusting, and they'll never tell you the truth. But I believe all those buildings that they showed vacant with the drones beside the blast, I believe every one of them was probably killed. They were probably asphyxiated by all the oxygen suddenly being sucked out of the air, like what happened at Dresden. But as horror as that is, we did see that. We saw that in our collective dreams, and that's why I'm thanking you for continuing this project on. Now, they're coming in again. It hadn't happened. There was nothing. It was all over the place for ages. I was getting no significant indicators of something. There was nothing, no commonalities, zero. You were all having the dreams that were just as diverse and all over, but there was nothing linking up until 2 weeks ago. And then the keywords started jumping up at the top. The first one was false flag, terrorist attack. Now, you know me, I do believe, I totally know that false flag terrorism exists. All you have to do is look what Edward Bernays did in Central America with the United Fruit Company and the CIA. They do exist, but I don't see them everywhere. I'm not one of these muppets who sees them everywhere, these hysterics, okay? But that came up a lot. Now, a lot of people who would be listening to my show would be very aware of these things, so I discounted it, except for the most of you who wrote about the false flag terrorist attack also wrote about it happening in either a museum, an art gallery, or some kind of public space involving heritage or culture, like a historic site, like something to do with museums, archaeology, culture, art, something to do with that was connected to 75% of those of you who said, which was about 31 people who said false flag terrorist attack in the last 2 weeks. And that's why I'm putting this out there, because I think this could be very serious. Now, some of you were very specific. You said art museum. Some of you said museum with artifacts in it. Some of you said things like a famous historic site like Giza or like Stonehenge. You mentioned something like that, but you didn't say it was them. You said you kept hearing and reading and thinking and dreaming about something happening revolving a false flag attack to do with a place of historical, cultural, archaeological importance. Now let's hope it doesn't happen, but let's see what unfolds, because we really got 2 out of 2, because we said Barcelona and there was that weird multiple shooting in that posh area of Barcelona that happened, and Barcelona regularly makes the news on anything like that. And now we got the Tianjin. So let's hope it doesn't happen. But yes, false flag, terrorist attack, something to do with a museum, an art gallery, or a historic or cultural site, which are all basically very similar in their kind of nature. They would attract the same kind of energies to them. People going to see a famous building is the same thing as seeing a famous painting or a famous artifact or a famous location. It's all the same. It's something to do with that. So let's keep an eye on that one. Now, the dream stuff, I've been taking the time out. I want to talk further about this because this is going to be very important. I've been taking the time out with the Somnambulant idea. I told you about that a while ago, that there was a French group called the Somnambulants back in the Victorian era who used to sit in rooms and control their sleeping as a psychedelic experience. Some of the things they would try to gain knowledge, they would try to actively be incorporated into their dreams. Other times they would try to have liaisons or rendezvous with other people in the dream project in the dream itself. Now, I've been reading a lot on dreams, various theories on them, ever since we had that amazing prediction of the Tianjin explosion. I've been reading things from Buddhism, I've been reading Western philosophy, I've been reading even religious philosophy on it. And one thing that many traditions believe about dreams is that the time frame within a dream is much different than the 5 or 6 hours or the 2 or 3 hours you dream it. So, for instance, firstly, before I say this, firstly, I want to tell you I am absolutely 100% convinced that when we go to sleep and dream in REM sleep, that dream, that we are in another reality that me and you can enter. We're in another reality, another existence of consciousness. It's not just falling asleep and having rest. We're somewhere else. Now, when you understand this, just like keeping a dream journal, you become aware of the dynamics of this alternate dream world that we live in, that you go into. Now, what was I going to say then? I was going to say that, yes, I was putting specific effort into not willing the dream, not willing it, but looking for a factor that may have appeared inside the dream, and then going into the dream again and trying to find it again. So, for instance, if I had a dream of a pink house and something happened in the dream, I would try to consciously, when I fall asleep, try to find that pink house again, if you know what I mean, if it was there to be found. Now, I was saying there about these ancient traditions believe that the clock speed of the brain in dreams, now REM dream state, and this is why the eye movements are incredibly rapid, is that it takes place at a completely different speed than the clock speed of your brain in this reality. So, for instance, if you fall asleep in this waking reality, if an hour of dreaming passed on this plane, in the dreaming plane, in the other side of the coin, as I've been calling it, that other side of the coin, 6 months, 3 years, 4 days, 50 days, 100 years could have passed. It's a different time frame. It's not quantifiable according to the clock speed of the brain in the waking reality. And I've been using the term 2 sides of the coin. Your consciousness has 2 sides to the coin. One is the waking side, which is what I'm talking to you now in this reality, and the other one is the sleeping side of the coin, which is what we are talking about here. Now, there is on the edge of the coin another factor there I will go into later, and we'll explore that. That's actually the twilight period, and that's where the entities exist and try to jump into your dreams and get into your dreams. And that's why these entities appear either at the start of a dream or the end of a dream, because the coin is turning. Okay, So, in my own experience, not only have I managed to get back to the places in the dreams I was having, but I've actually been able to discover where I have been, in a sense, and what the place is like. I can now navigate myself around inside the dream world. Before I go into that, you remember, I think there's two sides. I think when we fall asleep, we actually go into another world, And I think we get echoes of that every so often. Have you seen how in China and in other places it's been reported for hundreds of years? It's not Project Bluebeam, because this has been reported back forever, where cities appear in the sky. And they're cities that seem just like our cities, but no one can actually name the city. The famous one from 2000, I think it was 2010 or 11 in China, that appeared over a waterfall, and people are looking on the bridge. You could look into that city and see cars and traffic, but no one was able to identify that city. The reason, I believe, is that was in the dream world. The other side of people was in that city. On the people probably sleeping on the other side of the world were in that city. And something happens where we see a reflection of the other side of the coin now and again. And that's what these cities in the sky. And this is what I think a lot of ghost sightings, or people suddenly appearing out of nowhere and vanishing, could be. Or ourselves, there's famous stories of people who would be walking across a bridge or walking across down a street and suddenly found themselves in the countryside, or suddenly found themselves in a completely different place for a moment or a few seconds, and they were back again. They went on to the other side of the coin. Now, I have discovered, and I know this is going to sound completely out there for you guys, and that's okay, that's cool. Maybe it is out there. You know me, I'm probably, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the most conservative person in alt media when it comes to anything like this. So it takes a lot for me to get to this point. It's not because I'm closed-minded, it's just because I know you have to spend a lot of time thinking things out and not falling into the predetermined traps that have been laid, and assumptions that have been laid out there for us. But here goes. In my other world, I am in a city that appears to be very similar to a French Canadian city like Montreal. Very similar. That's the energy of it. It's a European type North American city is where I live. It's not a European city, and it's not a British or Irish city because people are driving on the wrong side of the road. It's North America. Ish. Now there's subtle differences. Ish. The people seem to speak a dialect of French, but it's not French Canadian, it's not French. I know enough about both those languages. It's almost like a similar idea. Culturally, this is what they're like. It's very similar to Montreal or somewhere like that. Very similar. It's very Quebec. It's very, very Quebec-ish. It's also got aspects of New Orleans, but it's safer. It's not as grubby and as dark as New Orleans. I live in, and now it's going to sound amazing, but it's true. I live in an apartment building. I'm single. I'm the same age I am now. I'm a little younger, I think. And I rent an apartment in a kind of a brownstone type building. I wonder what they call a railroad apartment. I have been able to go to the apartment, find the street it's on, walk out of the street and explore the neighborhood, to the point now where I can draw maps of where I live in this other reality. It's the more I do it, the more it unfolds. In the other reality, I have a disability of some kind. I'm not healthy, and I live alone, and I have people who take care of me. Now, I'm not completely sick. I seem to have something like I have like a weakness of some kind that causes me to sleep a lot, like a narcolepsy thing, which is interesting. Now, I have I have a lot of people who look out for me as if they know me. It's almost like I'm well known in that reality, or I've done something in my previous existence in that reality that has built me up a following. And these people are very kind, and they come up, they're mostly young people, a lot of them are women, and they come up and they see if I'm okay. So I'm well looked after. I'm okay. I meet other coincide doppelgangers of people I know in real life over there, but they're not, my relationship with them is not the same as my relationship with them in this reality. They could be friends, they could be lovers, they could be even people I'm related to, and I'm not related to in this reality, but they're there. I've met them, they're there. And I'd be very interested to know if any of you have had these dreams about me while you are dreaming. Now, there's a cafe across the, no, sorry, it's not across the street. It's in the building in the brownstone next door. It's a beautiful 2-story cafe that has sort of wooden seats, benches like cubicles, very attractive, very beautiful. And I go there all the time for my tea and coffee. There's a girl who works there, and she's on the second floor at the service counter, and her name is Monique. You go to the second, I don't know who she is in real life, that's her name in the dream. And you go, and she's short brown hair, very pretty, and she speaks with a French Canadian type dialect. Now, I have no special connection to that part of the world. I've never known anyone up there really, other than casual friends on the internet, and I have visited Montreal a few times, but I've never, it's of all the cities in the world and all the places in the world, it's not one place I have a great emotional connection to. So I'm not longing to be there. I'm just finding myself there. But where I live is quite a nice sort of like inner urban neighborhood. I will try and draw maps and put them up on my blog at some point. But at the end of the street is a 2-lane main street, a main, like what we call a dual carriageway in this part of the world, or a 2-lane boulevard I call it in the Americas, that goes to the city center. On that street is a bus service, and the buses are single-decker buses with a brown and yellow color scheme, but they're almost slightly ornate. They don't look like our buses. They look like San Francisco trolleys. They look like them. They have that vibe about them. Now here's where it gets really interesting. I've told you for the longest time that there was a house I would always dream of, an American style Addams Family, but a pretty one type house with 3 stories. And I used to have dreams of being on the first floor and knowing that there was something horrible on the second and third floor. And this went on for years. And in recent times in the dream, I have been able to get to the 3rd floor of that house. Well, I've found that house is on the street that I live in this dream reality. It's down the end of the street at the corner, on a more suburban, now a good bit down. I've walked down to it and back. The cafe is on the same block next to the apartment building I live in. In the apartment building I live in, the apartment underneath, there's a family of a young couple with 2 children, and above me on the top floor is an elderly lady. And she's quite healthy and well dressed. She's a sophisticated, elegant older lady in her 70s or 80s, and she's quite independent and healthy. And I go up and I talk to her in the dream. Now, this has happened over a series of nights. It wasn't just one dream. And I'm going to go there again and again and again until I have the whole somnambulant geography of this place located. And I am more and more coming to believe that I'm in one of these cities that people see as these mirages in the sky now and again. And that is the other side of the reality we live in. Now, I have not purposely tried to jump into the scene because my life in the other side of the dream is not glamorous in any way. It's quite mundane. I live in a very, very humble apartment, though I have a sense of security, like I have a long-term lease or the rent is paid. I have no financial fears that way. I don't feel threatened in any way. so I feel secure. I seem to have some kind of illness in that dream that causes me to have not a severe disability, but it causes me, it's almost like ME or one of those kinds of things, Epstein's Barr syndrome. But I have a lot of people who care about me and look out for me. And they seem to be people who are fans of something I've done in my earlier part of my that life, whether I wrote a book or I'm an artist or as a pop, whatever that, and the young people, mainly young women and some young guys who check on me, they come up to me, visit me, they talk to me. It's almost like I feel like I'm the elder they visit, and they make sure I'm okay and they bring me stuff. And I'm able to get around no problem most of the time, but sometimes I seem to be bedridden or house ridden. And when I go out, I spend a lot of my time visiting this cafe with the girl Monique working in it. And I have taken the bus downtown to the main shopping district, which looks like I can't explain it. It's almost like Covent Garden in London. It has that look to it, or the Galleria in Milan. Not as elegant, but that kind of general idea. Urban arcades, not like shopping centres, but urban arcades, like the South Street Seaport in New York. And this is amazing to me. This is blowing my mind because it's revealing itself in such stark clarity to the point where I almost feel like that when I'm there. Now, brings up another very interesting aspect for me, is that while I'm in this dream state, this is the first time in my life where I have been in the dream and been able to observe the dream from this reality. I've heard other people say that, like they've had dreams and they said, do you ever have a dream and when you're in the dream, you're thinking to yourself, my God, this is a ridiculous dream, or this is a great dream, or this is, when I've ever been in a dream, I've only been aware of being in that reality. But now I can seem to work between both. So what do I think this all means? Well, I really do believe, honestly and completely, unless someone could come up with some really hardcore scientific evidence to prove I was wrong, but I really do completely and totally believe that our sleep world, when we go into REM sleep, we're in a different reality. We're in a very, very different world. But that's as real in that world when we're there to this one here. It's just that for whatever reason, we don't, when we're in this reality, we don't experience that one as consciously powerful, and then the other one as being consciously powerful back in this one. And I think this may explain a lot of things. Like you'll be a different age in the other reality. You could be much younger, you could be much older, you might even be the same age. This may explain people who are quite young and they seem like old souls with a lot of experience. I'm starting to think that what people think is reincarnation is they're actually getting glimpses into the other side of themselves. It's not a previous life. I don't believe any of that stuff. I was Cleopatra and all that nonsense. But ones who have specific, definite feelings of being in another place, I think they're actually recalling their somnambulant existence. Is the best way to probably put it. Their somnambulant existence on the other side of the coin, and it explains, maybe it works like a feedback loop where your consciousness exists in two realities for the purpose that instead of having to learn all your instincts and all your experiences in one, you learn them in both. One while you're in this awake sleep and one while in the somnambulant state. And lessons learned in one can help you in the other. This gives birth to intuition. You may have an experience that was a negative one in one version of your reality that is different, that may help you in this one and may give you that noetic insight. So hold on. Now, I also want to talk about the sensation of myself in this other reality. I have a different sense. Now, when you have a sense of time and mood and place, like say you grew up in one country and you went to live in another. Say you grew up in Europe and you moved to North America And one day you're walking down the street and you get a smell of a specific type of garlic, or you even smell maybe an industrial smell, and it transports you back, not in a mood orientated sense, to the person you were, or the kind of consciousness equilibrium you had found in your previous home. Well, when I'm over in the somnambulant state, the sensation I have of myself is much different, not completely different. It's a lot different than what I am here. On this side of reality, I'm Mr. Have a good time. I like a laugh. I like a joke. I like a beer. I like playing rock music. I like getting up and playing with a band. I like going to rock concerts. I like comedy. I like having a laugh. But I also have a deep side to me, and that deep side to me is very, in its own way, very intellectual, very profound and deep, and very orientated towards the arts. On the other side of me, it seems to be the opposite. I'm a much more serious person over there. I'm much more serious. And I don't have the same job. And I don't know if this has to do with the fact that I'm not completely healthy over there, but I don't have this same happy go lucky, have a laugh, good time energy I have in this reality. It's almost like it's balancing me out over there, and I'm balancing myself out over there here. I also feel much more sexually stronger over that side, which is ironic because I don't seem to be as young or something over there and as healthy, and I don't know what that's about, but that could be a kind of counterpoint thing. That could be just part of life changes and physiology and stuff like that on that side. But the sensations are very strong, and that kind of thing. I also I'm much more attractive to people over that side. That people are more. When I say attractive, I don't mean sexually or something like that. They're more likely to come to me for guidance and wisdom. Where this side of the reality, they're more likely to come to me to help them deal with a problem. And they know 9 times out of 10, I'll say, get over yourself and just enjoy your life. It's not the end of the world. Where over there, I seem much more deep and profound, and it's almost like I have this sort of Samuel Beckett quality about me. That's very strange. It's almost like, I'm very comfortable in it over there as well, and I don't seem to have any problems. Now, here is, serious problems over there, and unfortunately, I don't have any serious problems here, and nothing I can't deal with. And I do have a huge support base here, and many, many friends and people who take care of me. I have many very powerful friends here in like Hollywood and the mass media, which I never call upon because I'd rather fight my own battles in this life. But I'm very fortunate to have an arsenal of very powerful and influential people that I've made friends with since Puzzling People came out in this reality. Showbiz people, I can't name their names online, but if I told you who some of the people I'm personal friends with, you would not believe it, but it's quite incredible. It amazes me. But over there, it's different. I've got a more humble. It's purely a humble thing, but it looks like, as I said, there was another part of me in that previous part of my existence that influenced and helped a lot of people, particularly young people, and a friendship circle has grown out of that. The mood over there is it's a little more it's a lot more somber than on this side. It's a lot more somber, but it's not sad or depressing or anything like that. What I have discovered about the other side, the somnambulant world, is that it's this world with a twist. For instance, little things like the buses looking almost like they were slightly steampunkish. Design is a little different. They have a different form of design. It's almost like what we used to hear about the fairy world. When people went into the fairy world, they said that doors were different. The hinges were mounted on the outside of doors, things like that. I think that's what I've experienced. The cities are better. Now, I know there's excellent cities all over the world, and I know Montreal and all those, a lot of cities in Canada are excellent cities to live in, but there seems to be a better urban quality on the other side. Cities don't have a sense of danger about them. They seem to be very more artistically designed. They're more sympathetic with nature. I notice a lot of trees around the streets. The nearest city on earth I could describe to would be Vienna. Vienna has some very beautiful suburbs that go quite close to the city center. It feels like that. There's a seems to be a different value system there, where I don't know. It just seems to be that older people are treated with respect. Younger people have a different relationship with the older people on that side. Maybe what happens in this reality is compensated on the other side, and what's dysfunction on the other in the Somnambulant world is compensated for on this side. I really don't know. So there's two sides. Now there is one other aspect to this, and this is where do all the nightmare comes from? Where do the monster, if the other side of reality is just like this one, why do we have dreams of demons and monsters and succubuses and all kinds of creatures and malevolent entities when we dream? Well, I think I've discovered where it is. It's not on the other side, but it's on the edge of the coin. When you're passing from this reality to the Somnambulant reality, that's when it's almost like an opening. You're vulnerable. If these entities do exist, and I do believe that there are other forms of consciousness on this planet which are not us, that these entities exist in the gap, in the split, in the twilight zone between falling asleep, shutting your eyes, and REM sleep. You're safe when you're in REM sleep. It's before and when you enter into REM and you come out of REM is when you have the horrors. That's why if you live with someone or you sleep with someone for a long time, you'll know they either have a nightmare almost very soon after they fall asleep, or during the night after they had a long, intense sleep. That's when the coin is being turned, and the turn of the coin is where these monsters and these entities and these like electrical night jesters and all these other creatures that appear in our dreams manifest. They're on the edge of the coin. So you must move over. The idea is, I think this is why people have difficulty falling asleep, also have the most nightmares. Now, at the same time, this brings up an interesting one about the psychopaths. Psychopaths don't dream. I've read this over and over again. They lie about dreaming all the time. That's not to say everyone who doesn't dream is a psychopath. This is also why I say people not to use heavy pot smoke. Heavy pot smokers, as well as people who drink too much, destroy their dream reality. And that's the point. Now, I'm not against people smoking pot. I'm not against people drinking alcohol. But I'm saying the ones who do it all the time or need it to fall asleep, even medication, these are the ones who are in danger of these entities entering into them. And I think when you have psychopaths and you talk to them and you interview them and they all say the same thing, when they tell you they're dreaming, it's clear they're lying. They're giving you a bullshit story to manipulate you. And they're not like dreams. They recount them like they're fairy tale stories. Dreams are not like that. They don't dream because they're from the edge of the coin. They're from the gap. They're from the twilight world. And this is why I'm now vehemently against people using ayahuasca. You don't know if the real you came back. So you have to be very careful with this stuff. And that's why these ayahuasca demons, which are nothing, these ayahuasca rituals are nothing like, they're meant for shaman. They're not meant for you. And if I have one more ayahuasca session, I'll get the answer. No, if you have one more ayahuasca session too many, you've been lured into a cul-de-sac, and you're going to find yourself on the edge of the coin. And what was on the edge of that coin, luring you in, is the one who'll now be inside you. So people need to be really, really careful of their consciousness. You know the things I've always warned you about: heavy pot smoking, heavy use of entheogens, heavy alcohol drinking, Ouija boards especially, anything or anything like that. And also the degrading sexual aspect and sexual perversion, S&M, these kinds of things that go beyond erotica. That's where the entities get in. This is very important. The edge of the coin is the place we have to avoid. We have to make sure we're very firmly, when we're in the world, very firmly in this world and very firmly in that world, the other Somnambulant world. So you can call me nuts. I don't care. This is the theory I'm working on. I'm a Fortean. I'm open to other interpretations of this, and I'm open to other interpretations of this. And of course, any one thing you want to put in on it yourself. But I would like to see you guys try and to try this idea. Try to become a journeyman or a journeywoman, a traveler within the Somnambulant psychogeography, wherever it is, psychic geography, whatever it is. I'm realizing now this is a culmination of something I've been working towards all my life. I used to take tremendous pleasure in losing myself in large cities. I don't know why. I used to just love the idea of getting off a subway train or getting off a bus at a stop somewhere in a place I didn't know where I was at night, not real late at night, like 7 o'clock in the evening, definitely in the darkness. And I used to find it was almost like a psychedelic trip when I'd be traveling or walking down streets, areas, regions I didn't know where they were. It used to give me an altered state of consciousness. It was almost a shamanic experience. I was lost, but I used to use my own senses, should we say, to try and guide me back to a place where I could navigate back to where I came from. But sometimes that didn't happen at all, and I'd have to actually go look for a place where I could find the taxi or call a taxi. And that's okay. That was part of the journey as well. I think one of the most fantastic psychogeography urban explorations I ever had was about 2002 or 2003. I went down to the Dublin Docklands, which are a vast old harbour system filled with ships and containers and train yards. And I've never been down there in my life. And I walked down this incredibly long street called the Alexandria Road, which has train tracks down the middle of it. And I walked all the way down to an enormous container terminal at the end. On the way, there's all these old dockland buildings and other kinds of streets, and I saw these strange people coming in and out of darkened alleyways. Didn't feel menacing in any way, but it made me experience a part of the city I'd never been in before and unleashed these remarkable and powerful creative forces inside me. And I'm now having the same experience doing this in the dream world. I at the point now where I think, you know, the way in that, what was that game they had years ago? I forget what it was called. Second Life, I think it was called, where people actually built a second reality in cyberspace. Dangerous bullshit, by the way. And went in there. I think the other reality is there in our dreams. And maybe if we start to explore this in the same way Stanley and Livingston explored Africa, or Scott and Adamson and Perry and the rest of them explored the Antarctic and Arctic regions, and Shackleton and all them, the great unexplored part of the world is the other side of the coin, the Somnambulant reality. Maybe we can actually start to build a provable and a realistic map of that territory and then meet each other in it. So that's the first hour of the show, and I'll see you on the other side of the hour, and we'll talk about some other subjects. Thank you very much.